Let me turn on my mic. Good morning. Welcome to the December 21st Planning Board meeting for the City of Miami Beach. We have some folks in our audience, and this will be a hybrid meeting. We'll have our capable attorney, Nick, to spell out how the meeting will unfold. Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the board. Today's meeting of the Planning Board will be conducted in a hybrid format with members of the Planning Board physically present in the Commission chambers at Miami Beach City Hall and applicants, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. To participate virtually, members of the public may dial 1-877-853-5257 and enter the webinar ID, which is 861-4342-6327#, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 861-4342-6327. Anyone wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon in the Zoom app or by dialing *9. Next, I'd like to read the city's notice regarding lobbyist registration. If you're appearing on behalf of a business, a corporation, or another person, you need to register as a lobbyist with the city clerk's office. If you haven't registered yet, you should register before you speak to the board. You don't have to register as a lobbyist if you're speaking only on behalf of yourself and not any other party, or if you're testifying as an expert witness providing only scientific, technical, or other specialized information or testimony in this public meeting, or if you're appearing as a representative of a neighborhood association without any compensation or reimbursement for your appearance, to express support of or opposition to any item. Expert witnesses and representatives of neighborhood associations shall, prior to appearing, disclose in writing to the city clerk their name, address, and the principal on whose behalf they're communicating. If you're an architect, attorney, or employee representing an applicant or an objector, you must register as a lobbyist. These rules apply whether you're appearing in favor of or against an item or encouraging or arguing against its passage, defeat, modification, or continuance. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to swear in members of the public and staff who will be testifying today. So please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kalurgis. We will now, I got you, David. I'm not going to forget that. Let's just take up the minutes. Do we have any changes to the minutes?
No, I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay, moved by Mark Milan, second by Tanya Bott.
Okay, I'll do a roll call. Ms. Bott?
Yes.
Mr. Brantley?
Yes.
Ms. DiPietro?
Yes.
Mr. Jalpi is absent. Mr. Milan?
Yes.
And Mr. Weeder?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, and just want to allow our board member, David Weeder, to have a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've served on...
David, I think you should turn it on.
About 16 years ago, or maybe 15 or 14 years ago, I fell down a stairway at the Shelburne Hotel. I was going to inspect a property for the construction of the Gale Hotel when I served on the Historic Preservation Board. So I've done, I think I've served on 3 boards for a total of 14 to 16 years. I want to say what a complete honor and privilege it's been to serve the city of Miami Beach. I've done my best to try and make sure that the city's heritage is preserved and that members who do serve on land use boards are cognizant of the fact that we are a community that needs unique character and resiliency at the same time. We have an active community that work on issues of preservation versus development. There is a dichotomy between the two, and it has to be reconciled, and land use boards have to act like sort of like Solomons to determine whether it's in the best interests of the city. Some people think that the city is going to be better because more people will come and more money will be turned into the economy, and some feel that the economy rests on the city drawing tourists and remaining a unique place. This argument goes around to all landowners and homeowners and people, potential developers. Not all development is bad, not all architecture is good, but there is a lot of architecture that's bad. I think the 6 years I served on the Historic Preservation Board gave me an education in architecture and design, which I am extremely grateful for. I think that I learned a tremendous amount from it. I want to thank my co-board members, all of whom are doing their best to serve the city in a impartial manner, and their hearts are in the right place. I've seen some board members over the years whose hearts have not been in the right place, but they are far outnumbered by people who do have their hearts in the right place. So I want to thank everybody on this board and some members who are not here today for their service to the community. And I hope that the Commission, in its wisdom, appoints people in the future to keep that watch as faithfully as they can. So it's time for me to step down and pass the torch to some new younger person who can attend the meetings. I sort of regret that the governor has taken the improvident decision of not allowing virtual meetings, which would have enabled me to serve for another 2 years. But it's okay. I'm very happy, and I'm very honored to have served. And I hope people will recognize what land use boards do in order to keep their community, and the Planning Board and the Historic Preservation Board do to keep the community on the even keel. I want to thank the fabulous staff of the city in the Building and Planning Department, Tom Mooney, Nick Curios of the City Attorney's Office, Rogelio Medan, Debbie Tackett, who's helped me enormously over the years, and many more who I don't even recall. William Carey, who was my professor of architecture. So I guess the most important message I want to send today, and I'm going to wrap this up, is that people who serve on these boards are volunteers. They receive no financial benefit. They think only of preserving the city in a manner in which they feel is right for its community. We're not elected. We are appointed by the people on the city commission, and I appeal to the commission to appoint people who are genuinely qualified to carry on the duties. There's a lot of hard work that goes on in reading these files every week, every month, and preparing for these meetings, visiting sites, and discussing with people who have specific agendas as to what they want to do, and very clever and talented land use lawyers who also follow that agenda of their own. And they're doing the right thing. But the people who come before us do have an agenda, and the lawyers, and speaking as a lawyer myself, have a client to represent. And if they don't represent the client to their best ability, their income depends upon it and their life depends upon it. But citizens who come before the board are basically representing their own interests for how they live and what kind of lifestyle the city affords them. So I would like everybody to bear that in mind. We are the guardians of this city, and we must carry that burden with us in our duties. So I do want to say we all quickly come and go on this earth, and what we leave behind are either resume values or human values. And on your gravestone, it's going to say, have I left human values? Your gravestone isn't going to say, here lies so-and-so, he worked harder than everybody else. So it was an honor and a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank again everybody. I am resigning effective immediately, and I'm going to be leaving the meeting, and thank everybody for their attention and their indulgence. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, David.
Mr. Chairman, may I address?
Yes.
David, before you leave, if I might, I am very sad to see you go. I'm very sad to see you go. I'm very sad to see you go before the meeting is over. And for those who don't know, the reason I'm sitting here, and it's sort of beautifully symmetrical that I'm actually sitting next to you, is that in 2015, with no background in city activism, because I had 2 little kids and worked full-time and was a single mom trying to keep a 1924 house from dealing with the issues that I had, I was asked to help run your mayoral challenge campaign. I'm a good organizer, I'm a good communicator, and I get shit done, pardon my French. So that's what I brought to the table. But in doing so, I got to know you as an attorney, as an activist, and as a friend, ultimately. And so I echo everything you've said today, and I thank you for your service to the city. And personally, it's not my place to thank you on behalf of the city for sure, but personally, I will never be able to thank you enough for introducing me into this world of throwing yourself against a brick wall repeatedly until you can see change that you believe is for the greater good, and for doing it in a way that is collegial and well-informed and always, always well-intended, and for giving me entree into what I believe is my life's mission of making a dent. And on a very personal note, you and Catherine are awesome, and I love that we share our French history together, and so thank you for all of that. And thank you to everybody out there for indulging me on my rant, but I felt it was going to bubble up one way or another.
Well, now you can't leave, so you can't just drop that and say, I want to leave the meeting. Now, Mark wants to say something too now, so you got to sit here for a little bit now.
Listen, David, you and I are probably the longest, well, you're the longest living resident, the longest living in Miami Beach in the sport. I'm probably the second right now. And so we share a lot of common things, like love for the city. And, when you first came on, I think we disagree on many issues, right? But we always seem to come to conclusions with respect, with intellectual integrity. And I'm just incredibly sad. I'm not disappointed because I understand where you're coming from, but I'm sad because I think that people who really understand going back in history, sort of like we say about Beach High. I went to Beach High, right? And people who've lived here for a long time who went to Beach High have perhaps a little bit different of an understanding of the city, the way it used to be, where we're going, and have a different kind of love perhaps for the city, because it's really so part of our core, and that's what, where you're from, that's where I'm from too, and that's where I feel so much common ground with you. And, thank you for your service, and I maybe it'll be like the Godfather movie. Every time they try to pull me away, they pull me back. I don't know what the quote is exactly, but I hope that, some point when things change in your life, perhaps, that, you feel better, you feel you could do this, that, this isn't necessarily an absolute end here. And I'm sure you're still going to be involved because you know so many people here and you're respected by so many people. So, you could be an oracle in your at your house on the water in Miami Beach, and we could all stop by and just get advice and and a drink. I'll miss you. I really will.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
And,
Can we take a recess to collect ourselves for a second? Okay.
yeah, well, we might have to. Actually, I thought about that. I was like, can we go off camera for? Yeah, we definitely. We were just having a conversation on this end of the dais. For all of those at home, what David's immediate departure means for our meeting today is that we don't have the 5 members present in order to take legislative action on items on our agenda today. And I don't think we have any ordinances on the agenda today, so that would allow us to proceed if we had ordinances. So with that, yes, ma'am.
Are you about to move to disband?
Well, I was going to, but I will pause.
Because I was going to bring something up for new business, which is a general discussion item that I was hoping to get your collective input in and just ask some questions as it might inform things going forward. It's not item specific, it's not legislative, it's just process oriented. So I don't know if you would indulge me.
Please.
You guys okay with that too?
Listen, they're ready for a meeting to end at
No,
1 or
listen, it's
2
not going to go
o'clock.
to 5 p.m. I mean, this is a bonus. So all right, everybody knows I like to throw in some big words. Okay, no, seriously, I do have a couple of questions because, as David said, this is an education, and the more you know, the more you know. And so you come in thinking you've got barely enough knowledge to be useful, and then you start asking questions, you learn more, and then things make tons of sense, and then things don't make sense, and so that's where this is coming from, and this is sort of these questions are sort of hybrid planning questions and building code questions, not code but process questions. So on issues like life safety issues, where there are regulations in a city and in a county, in the unincorporated Dade County, in the state. Forget about federal because that's a whole different conversation. But what is the order of which supersede which? So if Miami Beach says this is a situation that we don't think is safe and we're going to do something about it, can the county and or the state say, what, are you crazy? We think it's fine, stop it?
The state definitely can. They have sovereignty over what cities do. I don't know what specific situation, if there is in fact a regulation in place that would prevent us from doing such. Generally, if there's no rule that says you can't do something, you can. So that would be the situation.
And where does the county fit into that? It's the municipality and the state, and then the county.
As far as building safety?
Building safety, unsafe structures, health issues, sort of not project specific, but government looking out for the welfare of its residents kind of issues.
Well, I'll start with building safety. I think the really begins and ends with the city's building official, who has regulatory and enforcement authority over anything under the Florida Building Code. Certain decisions of the building official are appealable to either the Board of Rules and Appeals, which is a county board.
I'm sorry, to which board?
The Miami-Dade County Board of Rules and Appeals.
Rules and Appeals. So any municipal, any City of Miami Beach decision can be appealed to that board?
Certain decisions of the building official can be appealed to that board. Other decisions can be appealed to the Unsafe Structures Board of the county. The building official can also take cases to the Unsafe Structures Board in order to get an order of demolition if a structure is posing a threat to public safety. I think that's really I think the building official is as far as the kinds of questions you're asking, has the role that you're talking about. There are other, bodies at play, like the state building commission reviews and updates the building code periodically. You also have, in the wake of Surfside, there's a grand jury convened by the state attorney that I understand was just issued maybe draft findings.
Yeah, last week.
Last week. But I think really the main official you're asking about is the building official at our level.
And so when something goes to the City of Miami Beach's bodies that make these decisions, and then possibly also goes to the counties, does something trigger notification? So if the county is reviewing something, a particular issue, does the mere fact that it's doing that trigger some sort of notification process at the state level so that they are apprised, or they might just find out about it later?
I think it really depends on the specific facts.
So there's no automatic process to when they're talking about, let's say, demolishing a building, which may or may not have impacts more far-reaching than that particular building. There's no automatic noticing of the state. Or
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure. I think it would depend. Sometimes a building has to be demolished imminently because it poses an imminent
Right.
threat. And so in that case, I doubt there's an opportunity for extensive notice. But it would really depend on the facts.
And then conversely, what noticing is done if there is a structure that is being reviewed as an unsafe structure, or so not something that's winding its way through the legislative process necessarily, or maybe it is. I mean, it could be anything. But what noticing requirements are due to the residents that may or may not be impacted, whether they're next door neighbors or whether they own a business in the neighborhood? Is there any automatic triggering of a notification of that, or is it a case-by-case basis? Is there anything in the code, for instance, that would say if this is something that's being contemplated, you must advise any resident or business owner within 300 feet?
I think if you're talking about a planned demolition that requires either HPB approval because it's in a historic district, or the replacement design requires design review board approval because it's not in a historic district. I mean, that the design stage, sure, there's a notice requirement because just like applications before this board, there's a 30-day mail notice and posted notice and newspaper notice requirement. But I think when a structure is needs to be demolished on an emergency basis, I would have to look into because I don't generally represent our building department, but I'd have to look into what the notice requirements are.
And in the case where it's something that's in between, so it's not emergent where it's about to fall down and kill people, but nor is it something that is being demolished as part of the process of building something better. Like you can't make something new there with what's there, so it has to go. So if somebody wants to demolish a building that is by some considered to be unsafe, and just let the land be there, sort of untouched until people figure out what to do with it next, where does that fall?
It's hard to weigh in on hypotheticals like this. I think that if a building is being presented to the Unsafe Structures Board, I believe there is a notice requirement under that. Do you know, Rogelio? Because I don't.
And I know this isn't your.
Not familiar. This is a little out of the blue, so I don't.
I know. With your permission, Kareem, could we ask our staff to coordinate with the building department staff and get some answers on these items?
Yeah, and I think if these are issues that you're particularly interested in, maybe we can coordinate a meeting with with somebody from building, who's in a better position, to answer some of your questions.
Yeah, and I would love it. Also, I mean, I would always appreciate that because that's the best way to learn something. But
right.
As I said in the opening, I only know what I know. I have no idea what I don't know, and so I would also love it to be part of a public discussion like this at the next or 2 months from now, so that other people folks out here who may or may not have experience where they say, I've been part of something where this happened and that was really interesting, or I wish it had happened differently, it would have been a better process for everybody. Like, I'd love to get that input as well, just because we all only know what we know. So I'd love to draw on the collective expertise of the community of when it's gone really well, or when there's been an unmitigated disaster, or when unforeseen consequences have come up, so that we can figure out how this works and how it should work best. And as we look to, as David said, it's not just about preserving everything or demolishing everything. It's about finding that magic sweet spot. But some things have to be demolished and some things have to be preserved, and we talk a lot about the preservation, but we don't really often talk a lot about the demolition. So I think to be a well-informed community and for all of us out here, whether you're a developer, an attorney, or an activist, or staff, the more we know about this, the better we can all collectively do our jobs. So I would really appreciate a little sort of cross-department pollination to educate us all collectively about this, because even though it's not your wheelhouse, because it's not supposed to be, the fact that we're all like, gee, I don't know, that it could be this, it could not be that, I think we need to know. And especially, with the Surfside collapse and the unsafe structure orders that were issued, thankfully, the silver lining of that was that our city manager and county mayor and city of Miami mayor acted incredibly swiftly and responsibly to get on that. It's like, okay, what are we looking at? Who's doing what? What are the real risks? That's amazing. That's like the best possible situation. But then what happens? Like, we all take our eyes off the ball and nobody's paying attention anymore. Not nobody, but not as many people are paying attention, because there's always something else that requires our attention. And I feel like that is the second part of the conversation. So out of probably a few more different parts that I would like to get better informed. I think we should all be better informed, and I'd like the public to have a chance to be better informed too, so that they can make decisions that would affect their well-being. Thank you. And I don't know if anybody here has anything to add, or if that's appropriate, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we're still in meeting, so if someone wants to step forward and speak on it. I will just tell you that a lot of times, whether it's the FIU bridge collapse or the Surfside collapse, it takes time to really get down to the meat and potatoes of what happened. And a lot of times you don't know that in the first 6 months, right? And so people were very, certainly in politics, sometimes you have to respond or react. I'm going to use the word react sooner than you can respond to the real information. So always want to be very careful with how we proceed with things. I'm not sure I understand exactly the specificity of the items that you raise. There are some noticing things that happen with Dade County on a typical demolition, but they're noticed let's say to Durham, but they're noticed in a very, in a method, in a manner that I don't think is what you're getting at.
Right.
More of an administrative thing is what you're
It's
saying.
more of a technical noticing rather than, hey, you live next to this pond and it needs to be drained. I don't know if that's a good example, but like, if there is technical procedural noticing, that's great, but I would also like that sort of noticing in the ideal world to go to the potential affected neighbors, whether it's a school or residents or businesses, of whatever that change is, whether it's we're pretty good in Miami Beach, or we try to be. I mean, sometimes we're more aspirational than we are successful about letting people know what's happening in the community. I mean, the Residents' Right to Know ordinance was passed in 2017 to try to do specifically that, so that when major changes are going to happen next door to you or down the block from you as a resident or a business owner, that you have a heads up, so that you don't just, come home from work one day and find your neighbor's house gone with no clue that was going to happen, just because maybe you want to cover your furniture or something. I don't know. But so I know that there's the intent to notice people about changes in the way things happen in the city, and I think that there are, as there is with anything that is this big and unwieldy in code, there might be unintended gaps where not everybody knows what's happening in time to make decisions that might affect them. So, and if, like, for instance, if that's happening at the county level, that's cool. Does that also happen at the city level? Or because it happens at the county level, the city feels like it's covered? Or if something is affecting just the city, do they then also have to notice the county because they do or they don't? That's the kind of stuff I'm trying to
So
get
Tanya, is it possible to kind of narrow it down a little bit into specific categories and be able to provide that to staff to kind of get, what I don't want to do is have a meeting that's so all-encompassing that we end up kind of looking at the code and the procedures of Miami Beach as if we were consultants brought in to overhaul the code.
Not
So
the intended.
If we can just kind of, get some specifics as to what we want to have answered, I think that would go a long way in trying to set something up where we can be
Okay.
targeted on those specific items. If it's historic demolitions or something in particular, and we want to know the process and procedure on a step-by-step basis, I think that can be outlined, and we can draw little boxes and arrows and yes, no, binary decision-making trees. And I think we can do that pictorially as well as written, and have the experts from the city to come and testify. But what I don't want to do is just do something that's so all-encompassing.
No, and that's not the intent.
We lose the intent of
Yeah.
what you're trying to do.
No, it's really focused on demolitions, whether they're pertaining to something that may or may not be considered historic, or may or may not be, or pertaining to something that may or may not be considered a life safety issue.
Okay.
And I'm saying may or may not because, one set of people, one person might think, oh, this is an emergent situation, we need to deal with it. And other people might say, actually, we can fix it. So let's try to fix it before we go to the extreme course of action of making it go away entirely, right? And I'm not an expert on any of those things, it's not a particular item. It's been swirling around in conversations for the last number of years, and whenever I ask questions, nobody seems to know the answers. So, figured,
If it's not a life safety issue, we can talk to you about the process. That we understand. But if it's life safety, then that's really the building department is really the one that takes the lead there, and that's
Yeah.
the process that I don't know too well.
Okay, and I'm interested to know, if the processes are different.
Oh,
How are they different?
If the
and
building
why
official,
are they different?
yeah,
and should they be different? Maybe they should definitely be different. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
yeah, okay,
You guys are clear?
yep.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So we'll schedule a discussion. I'll try to get it for January. If the building official's not available, is February okay?
Whenever they can do it. I mean,
Okay.
I hate to ask them to do yet more work than they're already doing, because I realize it is a big ask, but I don't know if anybody here wants to throw something into the conversation, if there's anybody listening online. I don't know if anybody bothered to tune in because we just announced we're closing early.
We have one hand raised, Mitch Novick, if you want to
Sure.
open the public hearing.
Mitch, are you going to talk about
One second
dirty
before-
water again?
1 second before we let Mitch in. Does anybody from the audience have anything to speak on this item? Okay. All right, so we're going to close the opportunity in the auditorium. We'll take Mitch, and then we'll close the opportunity after him unless we have some more.
Hi, good morning. I'm fascinated by your conversation. It's actually very similar to the conversation the commission had a couple of meetings ago where I sought to speak, but unfortunately they must have not seen my hand raised, but I alluded to it during the Stutnick hour in the afternoon. Let's say the Historic Preservation Board imposes conditions requiring the restoration of a property that the building official should deem unsafe. The building official can subsequently alert the county's Unsafe Structures Board, hey, we have a property here that doesn't meet minimum maintenance standards, and I, as building official, deem this property unsafe. At that point, the ball is thrown to the county, and essentially residents or affected neighbors, people with standing, do not have notice of this. And I think what Tanya was trying to allude to, there should be some sort of courtesy notice other than the county's agenda that I don't even know where you can find that other than the county's website. If it concerns the Miami Beach structure, impacted neighbors should have notice, again, as a courtesy. And I think that's where Tanya was trying to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Anybody else? All right. So with that, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So with that, we're going to close the opportunity for the public to speak on this just item that we were talking in general. And I do want to get back to eventually having the affordable housing discussion. I don't know if we can do that in February as well. With the deferral of these items, I don't know if we'll be able to fit them on January's agenda, if they'll carry to February, but I guess we can talk offline to see how we can, get the conversation about the affordable housing, especially in light of David, who was appointed to that board.
We'll have to appoint a member.
Now resigning, we'll need to make an appointment there. And then also would like to, I think I'm going to probably reach out to our previous board member, Daniel, to see if he would come and speak. I know he's intimately involved in a lot of those affordable housing issues, in particular in North Beach, so do want to get that on the calendar as well. All right. Anything else that I'm missing before we adjourn?
If it would be good if we could take some action formally continuing the items to the next meeting, since we do have a quorum, but we don't have enough to approve items.
So not offline. So we do need to move these all to the next meeting?
Yeah, I think can we just make one motion?
We can make one
continuing?
motion. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, so we can't do anything today?
No.
Okay, my last meeting, by the way.
Oh, it's Mark's last meeting. Maybe.
Oh,
I
that's
think
right.
you can hold over one meeting if nobody's
up to two meetings. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not your last meeting. So.
Okay.
Well, it could be his last meeting if the
Depends what
commission
happens at the commission, right?
appoints someone on January 20th. It could be.
What a farewell, man. We didn't really,
Mine won't be as dramatic, but I mean, it blows me away what David did, because I think he's such an incredibly valuable member of our community. I mean, that's just so. It's not disappointing. That's a bad word. It's a negative word, right? It's sad to me, though, because we need people like him. And to me, Dave represents sort of the best, because he doesn't necessarily come with an agenda. He's very, very open-minded. He certainly has his views on things, right? But he doesn't have. Some people have certain agendas. He doesn't have an agenda here. He has strong views, but it's fair. And I've often been incredibly surprised by how he's voted on a lot of issues where I thought he'd go a different way. This is my last meeting. It's awesome serving, and I can't do better than what David said, and everything. I respect every member here. Some of us see differently, and Tanya and I have very different views on our city, but I absolutely respect her. I like her, and think she's a valuable member of this community, because we need to hear every view, not just one view. And I'm concerned, and again, what I would say to like David, just make sure we put people with many different views on this board, as opposed to certain types of views. And we'll see what happens with the appointments, but we're better when it's when there's contrarians on boards, not when everyone's just a rubber stamp agreeing with one certain way of thinking. So to echo what David's saying, is I hope we put people on this board that will be love the city and look out for what's best for the city, and be very open-minded in what we do here, which is challenging, because we have a lot of things tugging at us. We have resiliency, we have historic preservation, we have development, overcrowding, and we deal with a lot of stuff. And I'm proud of the decisions that we make up here, and I'm proud to be with all you guys. I think you're awesome, Kareem and Asa, you're awesome, and Nick and all my predecessors were awesome. And I love serving and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mark. Man, boy, I think I want to be the Lone Ranger for a little bit.
I think that's right, yeah.
I never thought about that when I first came to the board. It was, I remember I sat down there on the end, and Rogelio, you weren't here at the time, and Michael was here, and I would lean over to Michael and say, hey, but what shouldn't this be considered? And he'd kind of give me some pointers, and then I can fall into the meeting. So I do kind of miss that chair down there. That's a chair of influence there. Whoever gets to sit there, you're next to staff. But Mark, man. Met you so many years ago, and definitely going to miss you, and doesn't mean we'll stop communicating, but
We'll have drinks together still.
yeah, and I'll get a chance to finally come and hear you play in
Yeah,
the
you
city
need to
somewhere.
do another show.
Wait, can I just say one more point of privilege?
Absolutely.
Okay, I just want to say
Absolutely.
that I was in Austin this last weekend visiting my daughter, and I don't know if any of you have been to Austin, but it's really a spectacular town. And one of the things that they really have a lot of is live music. Okay, I was formerly a professional touring musician, and I still play in bands in town, and there's absolutely nowhere to play in Miami Beach. It makes me very sad. There's the North Beach Band Shell, which I'll be playing at the Rock Ensemble reunion coming up, and it makes me sad that I can't go see live music. It isn't the devil. As a matter of fact, I think it's a wonderful community activity that brings people together, makes people happy, and I really hope that the commission and the boards really sort of reconsider that, live music is a bad thing. It's a very good thing, and we have to find the venues to do it. And if it's a little noisy, it's not the end of the world as long as it's not too late. When I go to that town, I feel like we are so far behind a town like that, which is progressive in so many ways, with food and music, and it's a different structure, so it's hard to replicate what they have because it's a much more walking town. But there's a lot of things that we could do in the city that aren't so bad, like live music. And I hope that we start sort of thinking a little bit more that way, so that people like us, I think particularly older folks who like live music and not DJs, can have places to go in the city.
Sorry,
So
who are you calling old?
Okay, like myself. I'll speak for myself.
Don't be gesticulating at me.
Myself. And so I just want to put that out there, just because it made me sad when I was there. I was thinking about, man, I'd love to have a place like this in Miami Beach. I just feel cooler being here.
Well, if I may build on that, and then, the band shell is amazing, and it works so well because they have a hard and fast 11 p.m. cutoff, and the musicians know it, and there's no circumnavigating it, and the organizers know it, and James and Laura and their staff are phenomenal stewards of live music of every possible kind from every corner of the earth, from local kids to people from Africa and Europe and every place in between. And so I 1,000% agree with you. And as with everything, the devil is in the details. And I think if we can identify a few key spots where we can make it work so it's not, the band shell is not exactly in a residential neighborhood. There's a little bit of a buffer, but I live 4 blocks away from it, and I can go out on my deck and hear the music just fine, which I love, but some people might not. But even if you don't, it ends at 11. It's not going until 5 o'clock.
Right. If it's going till 3, I understand your beef. Right, 11,
right,
it's acceptable.
Right. And so I know people say, 11, we're not that kind of town. We need to start at 11 and go to... It's a different thing. It's a different conversation. And the reason I'm jumping on your comment is because, not just because I agree 1,000%, because we had at some point over the course of this past year had the beginnings of this conversation. We had collectively, Alex was still here, collectively said, we need to really revisit that and see what the opportunity is to reimagine the issue, because there was the inaugural edition of the North Beach Music Festival 2 weekends ago, last weekend. It's been a blur. And it was packed. And people traveled from all over the country to see Spafford for the 64th time. That is not a made-up statistic. I was talking to this guy. And I've never heard of Spafford. And so they were staying here. They were spending money. Where are they going afterwards? Where they have breakfast? Let's go for a swim. It's exactly the kind of engaged, active tourism, spending money locally and talking about what a great venue it is, and talking about how great Miami Beach is, and then going back home and coming back next year. So there is a way to do it. There is 1,000% a way to
But
do
it
it.
shouldn't be limited just to that. You know what I'm saying?
No,
I'm
that's
like,
what I'm saying.
To me, I'm
no,
talking about
I'm
even
agree-
bars. Like I play in a bar band. I played 2
But
weeks ago.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying there is a way to do it so
Right.
that it works. And it is not by, carte blanche, anybody can do anything. It's, let's put together a delimited inaugural pilot program and then see what's working, what needs a course correction, and go from there. So I'm with you, sister, as they say.
Yeah. I've been playing for a long time. I used to play a lot on South Beach. I used to play at, believe it or not, the Clevelander and Tropics on the beach and the Loft. And there are probably, Stevens Talkhouse, I've played all these places. I've played probably 8 venues on Miami Beach, and we play a lot here. And now there's 0 places, really.
Yeah, and those places, a friend of mine just played at the Clevelander a couple of months ago now. So it is doable, but you have to do a special event thing, right? And so, why don't we identify a process and let people make an application to say, I'd like to be part of the pilot program, and figure out
Well,
how
we
to.
need help on that because I won't be on this board. Let me know, and I'll chime in because
Okay.
I'm all in on that. To me, it's a quality of life issue for. To me, it's not even a tourist issue. It's a quality of life for residents issue.
Well, and it's economic development. It's all of it.
Right.
It's rebranding. It's all the issues that we're having as conversations now. How do we revitalize our brand? How do we make it relevant to people of lots of different backgrounds? How do we inject some new and different cash into the economy? How do we make residents want to hang out here in a way that makes everybody happy and it's good for us? And there are a million different tentacles of this octopus that will be good for our collective well-being. So. I don't know how we get that conversation onto the agenda. I'll let you guys figure that out, but can we please?
Talk to your commissioners, I guess.
Yeah, but I think we need to appear before a commission meeting.
Maybe have a commissioner-sponsored discussion item.
I think that would be the better place to start.
Okay, Mark, we'll talk.
He'll be off the board.
I know, that's what I'm saying publicly, Mark, we'll talk.
Yeah.
I'll be
He'll ready to go.
your black ops person for that. Okay.
You're not supposed to say that part out loud.
Well, with that, do we have support to move the items to January 25th
Yes.
meeting?
Hold on, let me just double check that it's 24th or 25th.
Had it up.
Yeah, I have the 25th.
I think it's 25th, but let me just double
Okay.
check so I don't tell.
Can't believe this never happened before.
It's the 25th. That's right.
25th.
Yep.
You just live long enough and you see everything, right?
Yep.
All right, so
25th.
do we have a motion to move the current planning board items for today's agenda to the January 25th meeting?
I'll move.
It's been moved by Mark Milan,
Your last act.
Maybe, probably not.
second.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Second by Tanya Bott.
All right, Ms. Bott,
Yes.
Mr. Brantley?
Yes.
Ms. DiPietro?
Yes.
Mr. Jopi is absent, Mr. Milan,
Yes.
and Mr. Weeder is resigned. Okay, motion passes 4-0.
Wow.
All right, and so with that, we're going to
And I think we should cancel the lunch, though. Make sure that she doesn't waste.
Already here.
Lunch is here, so you can have brunch.
All right.
You can take it with you if you like.
Is this the record for the shortest ever actually held planning board meeting?
Probably.
It could be.
But we can keep
It could
talking.
be.
It's
No,
not-
no,
to
no,
make sure we-
because if it is, I think there should be a plaque someplace.
All right, I received that. So with that, we're going to adjourn the planning board meeting for today. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.